Hello and welcome. This is the stamping technique video on watermark stamping. The supplies you're going to need for this are a stamp, any type of stamp will work, some cardstock, and a watermark stamp pad. I have Versamark here, but any brand will work for this. So let's go ahead and get started on the technique. In case you're not familiar with a watermark stamp pad, it is a pigment ink and it is clear. It's a kind of a sticky ink and it stays wet because it's a pigment ink. It stays wet a little bit longer than dye inks, and it's mostly a lot of times used for heat embossing. So when you stamp your watermark ink onto your paper, you're able to sprinkle some embossing powder over it. It'll stick to where it was stamped, and then you heat emboss that. That's a technique for a different day. Today we are doing watermark stamping, so we're only using the watermark pad. So I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to show this on three different kind of tones or shades of paper. I wanted to do real light and real dark and then something kind of in between, just to show how it shows up on some different tones of cardstock. It's going to show up better on the darker cardstock. So let's just ink this pad up, and you're going to kind of see that your stamp gets shiny because that ink is wet, but there's no color to it. So it is clear. So let's just stamp that on this basic beige, Flirty Flamingo, and Secret Sea. And as that ink kind of absorbs into the fibers of the paper, it's going to show up more and more. So it takes a little bit of time to see that image kind of appear a little bit better. Now, as you can tell on this light basic beige, it's a little hard to see, but you can see it there. And it'll show up a little bit better as we go here. So I'm going to just bring each of these up. And it really looks like tone on tone. That's kind of the point of this, you know, like a watermark. It'll look, it'll almost look like you used a Flirty Flamingo stamp pad to stamp this shape on here. But it's not, it's just the clear. So you can use that on any color cardstock you have. Isn't that so pretty? I love how that shows up. So this is really cool to use for, like, if you're wanting to do a focal point, make a customized background. In fact, it can be even done with a big background stamp. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this up while these kind of continue to dry and show how that works. I'm just using a small piece of cardstock again, so just kind of do the center here. I'm going to grab this old olive, set it down, and then so I don't get my fingers full of ink, just press a bigger piece of paper over the top here. Okay, peel that off, and there's that kind of customized background. Just such a cool technique to be able to use, just to get any look you want of that tone on tone. And I think this is kind of a nice thing to consider if you're kind of just getting into stamping and you are maybe working on with a budget and you can't buy all the ink pads. You could buy a pack of paper. They you know, that has maybe a variety of colors. Get yourself a couple stamp sets that you really like and this Versamark pad, and you know, play with doing some of this watermark stamping, and it'll look like you had all the colors of the ink to do kind of that tone on tone look. So once more, now that it's dried a little bit more, bring each of these up. So pretty. All right, and then I am going to show a couple card examples that I did this stamping with. So this is that same exact shape. I used the matching punch. I used the embossing ink to stamp that first, and then this little piece of cardstock back here, I used another stamp from the set, and I randomly stamped all over this piece of cardstock and then cut it out with a die to get that shape. So that's all just using the Versamark ink. And one other here, might be a little harder to see, but I used a horseshoe stamp and stamped this piece of pecan pie cardstock, and then I ran it through an embossing folder. So I kind of made my own customized background paper there for that card. So anyway, I hope that you enjoy this technique. I really hope you give it a try. If you do, share on social media and tag me at Leah Faye Handmade. I'd love to see what you're working on. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great rest of your day.